The first week was chaos. Lisa had no idea how to care for Veltharian cubs. They ate everything. They knocked over equipment. They left marks on the walls with their claws. Rin, the one with the wounded leg, limped through the corridors leaving blood and fluid on the floor. Lisa had to clean constantly, but she did not regret bringing them inside. She started a detailed log of their behavior. This was her job, after all. She was a xenobiologist. She was supposed to study alien life forms. The difference was that her subjects were living in her station, eating from her hand, and slowly becoming more than data points. On day 3, Kale approached her while she worked at her desk. The small cub climbed into her lap. Lisa froze. Veltharians had claws. They had teeth. They were predators. But Kale simply curled up on her legs and made a low, rumbling sound. Like purring, but deeper. More complex. Lisa kept her hands still. She did not move. She barely breathed. Kale stayed in her lap for 20 minutes before jumping down to explore again. On day 5, Rin allowed Lisa to clean and bandage its leg. The wound was infected. Lisa used her medical kit, designed for human injuries, and hoped it would work for Veltharian biology. She had no way to know if she was helping or hurting. But Rin did not bite her. It did not fight. It stood still and let her work, its large eyes watching her face. When she finished, Rin made the same purring sound that Kale had made by the second week. Lisa realized something important. These 3 cubs were not abandoned by accident. They had been left on purpose. In Veltharian culture, weak offspring were removed from the group. It was how the species stayed strong. The cubs that could not keep up, that were too small or too slow or too injured, were taken to remote places to die. This made Lisa angry in a way she had never felt before. She began keeping detailed notes about their intelligence. Mira, the largest cub, figured out how to open cabinet doors. It took the cub 3 days to learn the motion, but once it understood, Mira opened them whenever it wanted. Kale could distinguish between different crew members on the communication videos. When Lisa played messages from Earth, Kale's ears would point toward the speakers. The cub seemed to recognize individual voices, and Rin, despite the pain of its wounded leg, learned to navigate the station's layout in just over a week. The cub remembered where the food storage was. It remembered where the water dispensers were located. It remembered where Lisa slept. On day 19, Lisa received a message from the Colonial Administration. Captain Robert Chang's voice came through the communication system, filtered and distant but carrying clear authority. Dr. Martinez, we have detected unusual thermal signatures near your station. We are sending a team to investigate. Please confirm your status and submit a full environmental report. Lisa felt her stomach drop. They knew something was wrong. The sensors at the main settlement could detect large heat signatures. The 3 cubs were large enough to show up on those instruments. She had 2 days, maybe 3, before a team arrived. She needed to decide what to do. That night, she sat in her quarters with all 3 cubs. Kale was in her lap. Rin was at her feet, its leg healing well now. Mira was curled up against the wall, watching them all with those intelligent black eyes. Lisa realized she was in love with these creatures. Not the way a scientist loves data. Not the way a person loves a distant subject. She loved them the way a human loves another human. The way a mother loves a child. It was irrational. It was dangerous. It violated every protocol she had been taught. She did not care. The next morning, Lisa sent her response to the Colonial Administration. She told them the thermal signatures were equipment malfunction. She told them her heating system was fluctuating. She sent false data and false readings. She lied to her superiors, and she began to plan an escape. She had 3 days before the investigation team arrived. 3 days to gather supplies, to prepare a transport shuttle, to figure out where she could go, where the 3 cubs might survive. Kepler 442b was too dangerous for them without her. Earth was impossible. The journey would take months, and they would either die or cause a diplomatic incident that would end with their execution. That left the outer settlements. Small colonies on distant worlds. Places where the authority of the Galactic Council was weaker. Places where a woman and 3 young Veltharians might disappear. On day 22, Lisa began loading supplies into the station's transport shuttle. It was a small craft, designed for moving between research sites. Not designed for long journeys. But it would have to do. Captain Robert Chang's second message came on day 22 as well. Dr. Martinez, your readings are still irregular. I am ordering you to transport the suspected equipment to the main settlement for inspection. Do not refuse this order. A team will arrive in 2 days. Lisa deleted the message. She worked through the night, preparing. The 3 cubs seemed to understand something was changing. They stayed close to her. They made the purring sound more often. They touched her with their noses and their paws, reassuring themselves that she was still there. On day 23, Lisa received one final message. This one was different. Captain Chang's voice was harder, colder. Dr. Martinez, we have confirmed your location as housing undeclared Veltharian life forms. This is a violation of the Non-Interference Treaty and colonial law. You are ordered to terminate the specimens immediately. If you refuse, you will face criminal charges. You have until my team arrives to comply. This is not negotiable. Lisa sat in her quarters and let the message play 3 times. Then she deleted it. She loaded the last of the supplies into the shuttle. She gathered Kale, Rin, and Mira. She made one final check of the station to make sure she was not leaving anything crucial. Then she sealed the airlock behind her and walked toward the shuttle with 3 young predators at her heels. As the shuttle rose from the surface of Kepler 442b, Lisa looked back at the research station growing smaller below her. This was the end of her career as a scientist for the colonial administration. This was the end of her normal life, but it was the beginning of something else. Something she could not yet define. Something that would change the future in ways she could not imagine. The 3 cubs clustered around her in the pilot's seat. They made their purring sounds. They were afraid of the movement, of the new sensations, but they were not afraid of Lisa. That was all that mattered. She set the shuttle's course for the outer settlements and engaged the jump drive. Behind her, Kepler 442b disappeared into space. Ahead, the unknown stretched out like an open hand. Lisa Martinez and her 3 cubs accelerated into the darkness. Lisa Martinez stood at the edge of the research station and watched the storm move across Kepler 442b. The sky was orange and red. Lightning cut through the clouds like cracks in old glass. She had been on this planet for 8 months, studying the native species and sending reports back to Earth. The work was hard, lonely, and dangerous. But Lisa loved it. She turned away from the window and walked back to her lab. The station was small. Just one long corridor with rooms on both sides. Lisa's bedroom, her lab, the storage room, the water recycler, and the communication center. Everything she needed to survive on this hostile world. Outside, the temperature would drop to -40 Celsius. The wind could knock a person down. The creatures that hunted in the darkness were faster than anything on Earth. Lisa had learned to respect this planet. She had learned to be careful. But she had never learned to stop caring about living things, no matter how dangerous they might be. The storm lasted 3 days. Lisa watched the sensors and waited. On the 3rd day, just as the wind began to slow, her motion alarm went off. Something large was moving near the station. Lisa checked the thermal imaging. She saw 3 shapes. They were small compared to the adults she had seen before, but they moved with the same deadly grace. Veltharians. Young ones. The Galactic Council had made it very clear. Do not interact with Veltharian young. They are dangerous. They are apex predators. They will kill you without hesitation. Lisa had read the warnings. She had listened to the briefing videos. She understood the danger, but what she saw on the thermal imaging did not look like hunters. The 3 shapes were moving slowly. They stumbled. They stopped often. They seemed lost. Lisa made her decision in less than a second. She grabbed her emergency suit and moved to the airlock. Captain Robert Chang's voice was in her head, telling her this was a violation of protocol. The council's words echoed in her mind, listing all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But Lisa had never been good at listening to warnings. The suit was heavy and warm. The helmet sealed with a hiss. Lisa opened the outer door and stepped into the storm. The wind pushed her toward the ground. She activated the suit's stabilizers and moved forward. The 3 young Veltharians were huddled behind a rock, outcropping about 200 meters from the station. Lisa could see them clearly now. They were about the size of earthwolves, but shaped differently. Their bodies were long and lean. They had 4 legs that bent in ways that looked wrong to human eyes. Their heads were small relative to their bodies, with large black eyes and ears that pointed upward. Their teeth showed when they breathed. Even terrified, they looked dangerous. But more than that, they looked starving. Lisa could see their ribs through their skin. Their fur was matted and torn. One of them had a long wound on its back leg. The other 2 were shivering so hard, their entire bodies shook. Lisa approached slowly. She made no sudden movements. She did not raise her hands or show her teeth. She just walked toward them, steady and calm. The smallest of the 3 saw her first. It made a sound like a whistle. The other 2 turned their heads. Lisa could see the fear in their eyes. They were just as afraid of her as she should have been of them. She stopped about 10 meters away. She knelt down in the red dust of Kepler 442b, making herself smaller. She waited. The smallest cub, the one with the wound on its leg, limped forward. Each step looked painful. Lisa remained still. The cub's nose moved, testing the air. It made another sound, quieter this time. Almost like a question. Lisa understood nothing of their language. She could not speak to them in words, but she could speak in other ways. She reached into her suit pocket and pulled out nutrient bars. She had grabbed them without thinking. Now she was glad. She opened one and set it on the ground in front of her. The cub came closer. It sniffed the bar, its large eyes fixed on Lisa's face. She could see intelligence there. This was not just an animal. This was a thinking creature, trying to understand what she was and why she was not killing it. The cub ate the bar in one bite. The other 2 advanced more quickly now. Hunger won over caution. Lisa removed 2 more bars and set them down. The second cub, slightly larger than the first, ate its portion while keeping its eyes on Lisa. The third cub, the largest of the 3, was more careful. It sniffed and circled before eating. Lisa sat back on her heels and watched them eat. She had maybe 3 minutes before her suit's oxygen alarm would start to sound. She needed to move these creatures inside. Leaving them out here would kill them. The storm was not over. Another system was moving in from the north. These 3 would not survive another night in the cold, and Lisa Martinez could not let that happen. She made a choice that would change everything. She opened her suit's emergency door release. It was designed for human emergencies, a way to get out of the suit if it malfunctioned. As soon as she opened it, the suit's computer started a warning. Suit integrity compromised. Return to base immediately. Lisa ignored the voice. She removed her helmet slowly. The air of Kepler 442b was cold and thin. She would have maybe 4 minutes before her lungs began to shut down. 4 minutes to save 3 young predators that could kill her with a single bite. She stood up and turned toward the station. She made a low sound in her throat, not words, just a sound. A call. The 3 cubs looked at her with confusion and hunger. Lisa pulled out 3 more nutrient bars and held them in her outstretched hand. She began walking toward the station. Behind her, she heard the sound of claws on rock. The cubs were following. Lisa forced herself not to run. Running would trigger the hunt response. Running would make them chase. Instead, she walked steady and slow, her hand outstretched, the nutrient bars visible. Each step toward the station was another step away from death. Her lungs were burning. Dark spots formed at the edge of her vision. But the station was close now. 50 meters. 40 meters. 30 dots. She could see the airlock door was still open. She had left it open when she came out. 20 meters. Her legs were starting to feel weak. The oxygen deprivation was getting worse. 10 meters. Lisa stumbled through the airlock. She fell to her knees on the inside. The outer door began to seal automatically. The 3 cubs were right behind her. They skidded across the metal floor as the door came down. The inner door opened. Lisa crawled through, and the cubs followed. She reached over and hit the emergency oxygen release. Fresh, thick air flooded the chamber. She gasped and pulled it into her lungs. The 3 cubs collapsed on the floor beside her, their sides heaving with effort. They made small sounds, quiet and confused. They did not understand where they were or why the strange tall creature had brought them here. Lisa did not move for a long time. She just lay on the metal floor, breathing, alive, and completely insane. When she finally had the strength to sit up, she named them. The smallest one, the brave one who had approached her first, she called Kale. The medium-sized one with the wound was Rin. The largest, the most cautious, became Myra. Outside, the storm raged on. Captain Robert Chung was asleep in his quarters 2,000 kilometers away at the colonial headquarters. The Galactic Council was in session somewhere in the Kepler sector, making decisions about species and survival and the proper order of the universe. But here, in this small research station on Kepler 442b, Lisa Martinez lay on the cold floor with 3 sleeping predator cubs. And she smiled. She had no idea what she had just started. She had no idea how much her life was about to change. She only knew that 3 creatures that should have died alone in the cold would live to see tomorrow. And for now, that was enough. Space was vast and quiet and beautiful in a way that Lisa had never expected. She had studied it her entire life through instruments and data, but being inside, it was different. The stars did not move. The ship moved, carrying her forward at speeds that would take her consciousness years to truly understand. The outer settlements were 5 jumps away from Kepler 442b. Each jump took the ship out of normal space and into the fold. It was like stepping into a dream and stepping out somewhere else. The cubs hated it at first. Kale made high-pitched sounds of distress. Myra pressed itself against Lisa's legs. Ren, still favoring its healing leg, simply lay down and refused to move. But they adapted. The Valtharians had evolved to survive in harsh conditions. Adaptation was in their biology. Lisa had left all her communication systems open. She wanted them to track her. She wanted them to know she was gone. Running silently would only make things worse. Instead, she wanted to show them that she was serious, that she would not be coming back. On the 3rd day of travel, the alarms began to sound. A Valtharian warship had entered the sector. It was massive, built for speed and combat. The ship's designation appeared on Lisa's screen, the Void Hunter. It was the personal vessel of Ambassador Vorath, one of the most powerful commanders in the Veltharian military. Lisa's heart rate increased. She had not expected this. Colonial forces, yes. Maybe a retrieval team sent by the Galactic Council. But a Veltharian warship was something else entirely. The communication system activated before Lisa could decide whether to run. A voice came through. It was deep and layered, like multiple voices speaking at the same time. Veltharian speech patterns were complex. They had developed the ability to make different frequencies with their vocal apparatus, creating meaning on multiple levels at once. The translation system worked to convert it to human speech. The result was close but clumsy. Identify yourself, human vessel. You are in Veltharian patrol space. Your trajectory and trajectory signature match reports of a stolen colonial craft. Acknowledge or be destroyed. Lisa's hands were shaking. She took a breath and activated her own transmitter. This is Dr. Lisa Martinez. I am the pilot and sole adult on this vessel. I have 3 young Veltharians on board. I am requesting asylum in Veltharian space. The reply took 30 seconds. The warship was not close enough for real-time communication. 30 seconds felt like 30 minutes. Confirmed. Hold your position. We are engaging docking procedures. Do not attempt to flee. Do not attempt to launch weapons. You will comply or be destroyed. Lisa cut the engines. The shuttle drifted in space, helpless, waiting. The warship grew larger on her screens until it filled her entire field of vision. It was a weapon made solid. Every line and curve spoke of violence and control. The docking sequence was violent. Lisa felt the impact as the 2 ships connected. Metal groaned and protested. The cubs moved closer to her, making small sounds of alarm. Lisa left them in the main cabin and moved to the airlock. She could see through the viewport. Armored figures were moving through the connecting tunnel. They were not human. They were Veltharian soldiers, tall and lean and deadly. The airlock hissed open. The first figure through was not a soldier. It was taller than the soldiers, but moved with less aggression. It wore clothes that had symbols Lisa did not understand. Its eyes were a lighter color than the cubs, more golden than black. It made a sound, a complex vocalization that the translator rendered as curiosity in command. I am Ambassador Vorath. You are Lisa Martinez. You have Veltharian young with you. It was not a question. Yes, Lisa said. I do. Vorath moved closer. The ambassador's eyes fixed on her face, studying her with an intensity that made Lisa feel exposed. She forced herself not to look away. Why? Vorath asked. The question was simple, but behind it was the weight of species policy, of Veltharian culture, of everything that made the 2 civilizations so different from each other. Lisa explained. She told him about finding the cubs, about leaving them to die in the cold, about bringing them inside, about the weeks of caring for them. She told him about their intelligence, their capacity for affection, their willingness to trust a creature that should have terrified them. Vorath listened without interrupting. When Lisa finished, the ambassador was silent for a long time. You risked your life for them, Vorath said finally. Yes, you violated your own species' laws to protect them. Yes, you abandoned your career, your position, your future for 3 cubs that your culture considers dangerous predators. Yes, Lisa said again. Vorath turned away. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the vast emptiness of space. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. In Veltharian culture, the young that cannot survive on their own are removed. This is necessary. It has always been necessary. The weak drain resources from the strong. The weak do not survive in a universe that has no mercy. Vorath turned back to face her. But you kept them alive. You gave them resources. You gave them care even though they might kill you. This is not logical. No, Lisa agreed. It is not logical. Why then? Lisa thought about the question. She thought about Kale in her lap. She thought about Rin standing still while she bandaged its leg. She thought about Myra learning the station's layout. She thought about 3 young creatures that had learned to trust her despite every reason not to. Because they were alive, Lisa said. Because they could feel pain and fear and need. Because I could help them. I could not choose anything else and remain who I am. Vorath made a sound. The translator could not render it into human speech. It was too layered, too complex. But Lisa heard something in it that sounded like understanding. Bring the young, Vorath said. They will be scanned and verified. If they are truly abandoned, if they are as you describe, then this matter becomes much larger than a human's violation of treaty law. Lisa retrieved the 3 cubs from the cabin. They clung to her as they moved through the connecting tunnel and onto the warship. The soldiers made way for them. Lisa did not see any weapons raised. No one made any move to harm her or the cubs. Kale, Rin, and Mira huddled together in the vast chamber that served as Vorath's command center. They were clearly afraid, but they were alive, and they were no longer alone with a single human trying to keep them safe. Vorath's scanner took readings. The results appeared on holographic displays that Lisa could not read. The ambassador watched the data in silence. Then he made a sound that carried weight and significance. These young are healthy. Their cognitive markers are strong. Their social bonding has functioned despite mixed species interaction. They should not exist. And yet, they do. Vorath looked at Lisa. You have done something impossible, Dr. Martinez. You have made my people reconsider what we believe about ourselves. That is a dangerous thing. Come. The High Council will want to hear your story. They will decide what to do with you, and perhaps what to do with all of us. The warship's engines engaged. The stars outside the viewport began to shift and change. They were jumping, taking the fastest route to the Valtharian homeworld and the High Council that ruled their entire civilization. Lisa stood in the vast command center with 3 young predators at her feet. She had escaped one authority only to place herself before another, much more powerful one. She had no idea if she had saved these creatures or condemned them to a different kind of fate. But Kale wrapped itself around her leg. Rin made the purring sound. Myra touched her hand with its nose, and Lisa kept moving forward into the unknown. The Valtharian homeworld was black and red. Mountains, like broken teeth, jutted from the ground. The sky was the color of old blood. Lightning moved between clouds that looked like smoke. This was a world that demanded everything from its inhabitants. A world where weakness was not tolerated, and mercy was a concept that did not exist. Lisa stepped onto the surface with the 3 cubs at her side. She had changed into formal clothes. Ambassador Vorath had provided them. They were made of material that felt like silk but was harder, stronger, more suited to a world that wanted to tear her apart. The High Council chamber was built from black stone that seemed to absorb light. It was vast, cavernous. The ceiling stretched up so far that Lisa could not see it clearly. The floor was polished to a mirror finish, and arranged in a semicircle, elevated above Lisa's position, were the 7 members of the Valtharian High Council. They were massive. Each one was older than the cubs by decades at least. Their bodies bore scars and marks of countless battles. Their eyes held the weight of decisions that affected trillions of lives across hundreds of worlds. Lisa's legs wanted to shake. She forced them to stay still. One of the council members moved. It was female, Lisa thought, though the differences were subtle. Her name was displayed on a small holographic screen. Vorath had taught Lisa how to read their written language. The council member's name was Kestra. She was the leader of military operations for the entire Valtharian civilization. Kestra's voice came out like grinding stone. The translator struggled to keep up. You are Lisa Martinez. You are human. You are the creature that took 3 young Valtharians from their proper disposition. I am, Lisa said. She forced her voice to be steady. Another council member, male this time, leaned forward. His name was Varant. Lisa had read about him. He was a philosopher and theorist. He was the one who had written the non-interference treaty that governed human and Valtharian contact. You violated the treaty that protects both our species, Varant said. You violated colonial law. You violated the natural order of species development. You took 3 young that were rightfully removed from the gene pool. They were dying, Lisa said. Yes, Varn acknowledged. That was the intention. Natural selection. Efficient resource allocation. Lisa felt anger rise in her chest. But she kept her voice level. They were children. A third council member made a sound. The translator rendered it as amusement. Perhaps confusion. The emotion did not translate well. This was Taros, a scientist like Lisa. He had studied human biology and behavior. Children are a concept your species uses, Taros said. The young require extended care and investment. For us, the young either survive on their own or they do not. There is no middle ground. There is no special status for immaturity. Then your species learns nothing, Lisa said. Your young cannot learn from your knowledge. They cannot benefit from your experience. They simply must survive alone or die. That is not a civilization. That is just predators living in the same area. The council chamber went silent. Lisa had gone too far. She knew it immediately. She had insulted the entire culture of an entire species before the people, who could literally order her death. But before anyone could respond, something happened. The 3 cubs moved. Kale had been standing at Lisa's feet, quiet and still. But now, the small cub made a high-pitched sound. A call. It was not a sound of fear. It was a sound of recognition. The cub ran toward the elevated platform where the council sat. Lisa's heart stopped. The guards moved to intercept. But Vorath raised his hand, and they stopped. Kale jumped. It was not a high jump. The cub barely made it halfway to the platform. But it tried again, and again. Each time, Kale fell back to the ground. But the cub did not stop trying. Then Rin moved. The cub with the healed leg joined Kale. Together, they leaped and fell, leaped and fell. Myra watched for a moment. Then the largest cub also began to try. Lisa realized what they were doing. They had learned this from her. They had watched her move in the small spaces of the research station. They had seen her climb, reach, push past her own limitations. They were doing it now, in front of the High Council of the Valtharian civilization. They were trying to reach the leaders of their own species. Kestra stood up. The movement was sudden and violent. Lisa thought the council member was going to order the guards to remove the cubs. Instead, Kestra descended the stairs toward the young Valtharians. Kale saw Kestra and made the purring sound. The cub's fear transformed into something else. Recognition, perhaps. Or hope. Kestr reached down. Her hand, which was large enough to crush the small cub, gently touched Kale's head. The cub did not bite. It did not attack. Instead, it leaned into the touch. The council chamber went completely silent. Rin approached Kestra next. Then Myra. All 3 cubs pushed against the council member's legs, making their purring sound. The same sound they had made for Lisa in her research station. The same sound they made when they trusted someone completely. Kestra's eyes were fixed on Lisa. For a moment, the council member was just a being looking at another being. Not a military commander. Not a politician. Just something alive, witnessing something alive. Kestra returned to her seat. She made a long, complex sound that took the translator almost 30 seconds to render. These young are bonded to a human. This is not possible. The young bond only to their own kind, or to nothing at all. And yet, this human has provided what we remove. This human has given what we withhold. These young are healthy. They are intelligent. They have learned from a creature of another species. Vorant, the philosopher, made a gesture. It was agitated, angry. This proves nothing. These young have been corrupted. They have lost their nature. They are no longer pure Veltharians. Are they less? Taros asked. The scientist was studying the cubs with intense focus. Are they weaker? The data shows them to be above average in health and cognitive function. The human's intervention has not weakened them. It has strengthened them. That is irrelevant, Vorant snapped. The principle stands. The young must survive on their own. That is how we remain strong. Lisa felt Kale press against her leg. The cub looked up at her. Its large black eyes held something that Lisa understood completely. You are wrong, Lisa said. Everyone turned to look at her. Even the guards. Even the council members who had not spoken yet. You keep yourself strong by throwing away your weak, Lisa continued. My species does the opposite. We keep our weak. We teach them. We learn from them. We ask ourselves what we can teach rather than asking what we can discard. And we are not weaker for it. We are stronger. Lisa gestured to the 3 cubs. These young did not survive on their own. They died in the cold and the dark. But I gave them food. I gave them warmth. I gave them knowledge about how to survive. And now they are better than any cub that survives alone. Not because they are special, but because they had help. Because someone cared enough to invest in their survival. She looked directly at Kestra. You call this corruption. I call it growth. You call this weakness. I call it strength. My species has not conquered the galaxy through being cold and efficient. We have survived through choosing to care for those that need our help. That is the only reason I am here right now, speaking to you, alive and unafraid. Because humans have the capacity to see value in others and act on that value. The council was silent. Then Taros made a sound that the translator rendered as agreement. The human speaks truth. The data supports this. Species that care for their young develop greater social bonds, greater societies. The young learn faster when taught. Our own records show this in the archives, in the data we have collected for generations. Kestra nodded slowly. I vote to accept the human's proposal. These 3 cubs will remain with her. They will be monitored. If they prove the human correct, if they show that cross-species bonding creates strength rather than weakness, then we reconsider our policies. This is madness, Varn said, but the vote was called. 5 council members voted yes. 2 voted no. It was done. Lisa felt her knees weaken. The 3 cubs pushed against her legs. Keeping her steady, Varth approached and made a sound that carried weight. You have changed something today, Dr. Martinez. Something that cannot be unchanged. The Veltharian High Council does not reconsider decisions. And yet, you have made us do exactly that. What comes next, I cannot predict. But I will stand with you and with these 3. The future is unwritten. Lisa knelt down and pulled the 3 cubs close to her. They made their purring sound, the sound of trust and safety. She had done what she set out to do. She had saved 3 young lives. But she had done something much larger. She had opened a door that had been closed for millions of years, and there was no way to close it again. 3 years passed. The Veltharian High Council established the first human-Veltharian joint diplomatic mission. Lisa was appointed as the human ambassador. Varth remained the Veltharian liaison. Together, They worked to build understanding between two species that had existed in wary distance for centuries. The three cubs grew. Kale remained the smallest, but intelligence and courage made the cub into something more than size could measure. Rin's injured leg healed completely. The cub became faster and stronger than most Veltharians its age. Myra grew into the largest of the three, but the protective instinct learned from Lisa made the cub into a guardian rather than just a predator. They appeared in diplomatic chambers alongside Lisa during negotiations. They sat in council meetings. They attended formal ceremonies. Slowly, gradually, they changed how the Veltharian people saw themselves. Other Veltharian families began to adopt cubs that would have been removed. The practice was not universal. Many still believed in the old ways. But change had started. Change that could not be stopped. The humans, in turn, learned from the Veltharians. They learned about strength and efficiency. They learned about discipline and focus. They learned that sometimes sacrifice was necessary. The two species, so different in so many ways, began to discover that they were also similar in ways that mattered. Lisa received offers from the human government to return home. Offers of wealth and position and status. She declined all of them. She had found her purpose, her place in the universe. It was here, in the space between two species, building a bridge where there had been only distance. Late in the evening of the first formal peace treaty signing, Lisa sat in her quarters on the diplomatic station. The quarters were large and comfortable. They overlooked the stellar systems that held both human and Veltharian worlds. Kale was the first to arrive. The cub was no longer small, but compared to adult Veltharians, still juvenile. Kale wore a diplomatic sash, a symbol of the role the three played in the peace negotiations. The cub jumped onto Lisa's chair and curled up in her lap, just as it had done 3 years ago in the research station. The purring sound came immediately. Unchanged, unmistakable. Rin arrived next, carrying a gift. It was a piece of carved dark stone, shaped like the three cubs resting against each other. Lisa had requested it for a souvenir of their journey. Rin placed it on the table beside her with careful precision. Myra arrived last, as always the most cautious. The largest cub approached Lisa slowly, then rested its head on the armrest of the chair. The contact was gentle, careful, tender. Lisa sat in her chair with 3 Veltharian cubs pressed against her. One in her lap, one with its head on the armrest, one standing guard beside her, looking out at the stars. She thought about the moment she had found them in the cold of Kepler 4, 42b. She thought about the choice she had made to risk everything for creatures that should have terrified her. She thought about how 1 human and 3 abandoned cubs had changed the course of galactic history. You know what I realized? She said softly. On the day I found you, the cubs made their sounds. They understood more human speech now than they had 3 years ago. They had grown in knowledge as much as in body. I realized that strength is not the same as coldness. Power is not the same as cruelty. Your species had been so focused on survival that you had forgotten how to live. And my species had been so afraid of you that we could not see that underneath all that fearsome power, there were beings that could feel, could learn, could love. Kale shifted in her lap, looking up at her with those large black eyes. I did not save you, Lisa continued. You saved me. You showed me what I was capable of. You showed me what the universe could become if we chose compassion instead of fear. A soft chime indicated that Lisa had a visitor. She did not move. The cubs did not move. Ambassador Vorath entered without waiting for permission to do so. He had earned that right. He was as much a partner in this peace as Lisa was. More, perhaps. He had risked his position and his status to support a human and 3 cubs. Vorath made the complex sound that served as greeting between them. It was layered with affection and respect. The treaty was signed, he said. All 7 council members approved the expansion of the Human Voltharian Exchange Program. We begin integration on 5 worlds within the cycle. That is good, Lisa said. Yes, Vorath agreed. But that is not why I came. The ambassador moved to stand beside Lisa's chair. He looked at the 3 cubs. His expression was what humans might call fondness. I came to tell you something. The council has voted. It is official. Voltharian families will begin to keep their young. Not all families. Not immediately. But the practice of removal has been ended. The young will be taught. They will be invested in. They will be given the chance to discover who they are, rather than having that choice made for them by genetics and survival. Lisa felt tears on her cheeks. She had not realized she was crying. Because of them, Vorath continued, gesturing to the 3 cubs. And because of you. 1 human. 1 simple act of compassion. And an entire civilization has changed direction. Kale reached up and touched Lisa's face with 1 paw, gentle and curious. What will you do now? Vorath asked. Lisa thought about the question. The answer was simple. I will stay here. With them. I will watch them grow. I will help build this piece, 1 day at a time. I will show the galaxy that strength and gentleness can exist in the same being. That predators can learn compassion. That humans can trust the species they were taught to fear. She pulled the 3 cubs closer. I will do what I have always done. I will choose to care. Because in the end, that is the only choice that matters. Outside the quarters, the stellar systems continued their ancient dance. Stars moved and light traveled across the void. The universe was vast and old and did not care about the small decisions of small creatures. But Lisa Martinez knew better. 1 person choosing compassion could reshape worlds. 1 human and 3 abandoned cubs could change the course of history. 1 act of kindness, made in the cold and the dark, could light a fire that spread across the galaxy. She sat in her chair as the evening deepened into night. 3 Voltharian cubs rested against her. Predators that had learned to trust. Young that had learned to be cared for. Children in the truest sense of the word. And Lisa Martinez, who had risked everything for creatures that should have killed her, smiled quietly as they drifted off to sleep. The peace treaty was signed. The future was uncertain, but in this moment, in this quiet room with 3 sleeping cubs against her chest, Lisa knew 1 thing with absolute certainty. She had made the right choice, and the universe would never be the same.